Live from New York. This is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Tuesday?
I'm good, Nate. I'm looking forward to the show.
We got a lot to talk about. A lot in the news today. A lot of basketball news we're talking about. Not a lot of football. We're switching things up because we're going to hit a little bit of a cold spell, I think, until free agency really picks up. The franchise tag window is rapidly closing. We got about a week left of that, so things are going to start picking up. We even got some topics for Friday's show that we could hint at maybe later. But we got a lot of basketball to talk about, but let's actually start with some football news because, of course, the NFL, and this was kind of expected throughout this NFL season, it appears that, firstly, there was a bunch of reports about this anonymous team bringing in a bid to ban the Tush Push, and then Diana Russini comes out and says it's the Green Bay Packers. They're the one to put in the bid to the competition committee to ban the Tush Push, famously done by the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts and that whole group with Dallas Goedert and now Saquon Barkley pushing them away. We've seen the Bills do it. We've seen the Packers do it. We've seen the Eagles obviously do it. We see a bunch of teams trying it, but the Eagles really are the ones that really put this play out there for teams to potentially use. We've also seen teams stop this play, like the Kansas City Chiefs against the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game. But my question to you is, do you think that with the amplified use of this play and how at least, somebody in the Packers front office thinks that there is no skill associated with this play, that the NFL should actually say, you know what, this is an illegal play?
Well, a lot of teams have been using it, and I think the frequency of use has increased. Particularly in the 24-25 season here, we saw many teams using the Tush Push and mostly being successful with it. Buffalo used it a lot, and we kind of criticized the way they used it because they didn't have the big backs in or even a linebacker or a lineman in the back there of Josh Allen trying to push him through for a yard or two, and whereas some of the other teams, you look at the Ravens, they use who's the tight end that they
Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews, yeah, they used him, and they used it sometimes when they were on their own 30-yard line. And they'd try it, and generally the percentage there is very high. But sometimes it's telegraphed. They know it's coming, and they get stopped on fourth down. And we saw that happen to the Bills in the game against the Chiefs. And I thought they had that first down twice there. It looked like Josh Allen made it on that play, but that's the play they were using. Everybody knew what they were going to do. They knew exactly where he was going to go, and the ref said that they stopped him. So should they ban it? I don't know. It's not a very interesting play. It's not a very exciting play. Everybody knows it's coming when they line up. You know the formation. It's just a matter of brute force against brute force to see whether they can get the first down or be stopped. The Lions, they go for it on fourth down a lot. But the Packers being the one, is that confirmed? Is that for sure?
Diana Russini reports the Green Bay Packers are the team that submitted a proposal to the NFL's competition committee to ban the Tush Push.
Well, I don't remember ever seeing them try it, so maybe they don't think any others should do it because they're not very good at it, I guess.
Well, that's actually against the statistics. The numbers are, and this is what's funny about the situation, the Packers actually convert at a higher rate on QB sneaks and tush pushes than the Philadelphia Eagles do, and they both have higher than the NFL average of those particular plays. So that's what I find funny about this situation, that the Packers convert those types of situations of a yard or less to go, and they convert at a higher rate than even the Philadelphia Eagles and a significantly higher percentage than the NFL average. So that's what I find a little bit funny about this situation. But should the NFL ban it? Absolutely not. Because this is exactly the same thing, like, I don't know, when dunking became a thing. We saw Lou Alcindor at the time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was incredible at dunking, so much so that they banned the dunk. You couldn't dunk anymore in basketball. That's a vital play in the NBA. What would Rudy Gobert do? What would Dwight Howard do? What would Shaq do? Because he couldn't hit a jump shot for his life. If dunking wasn't a thing in basketball, it's like taking the three-point away from Steph Curry. Just because he could do it significantly better than everybody else, you think you should ban it? No. Jalen Hurts could squat 600 pounds. And he has quadzilla and also a tight end pushing. Why did the Bills decide, you know what, let's go to Josh Allen to the left 7 times, and we'll have just James Cook or even Ty Johnson pushing him? A 200-pound running back, one singular player. No wonder why they went 3 of 7 on 1 yard or less in the AFC Championship game on those plays. No! Just because one team could do it better does not mean that this play should be banned. In fact, the Eagles, who really made this play known, were only the 4th best team in 2024 to do it. They were converted on 70.4% of their tush-push tries. And we saw, actually, in the AFC Championship game, like I mentioned, the Chiefs did a perfectly fine job at stopping the Buffalo Bills doing it. We've seen even teams going up against the Eagles who stop it. And then we could look at that Commanders play with Frankie Louvu diving over the line a number of times right by the goal, and then the ref coming in saying, we're going to award the other team a score if these penalties continue. Well, guess what? I know you can't jump the play or try to, although if Troy Polamalu was out there, I think he might actually have an opportunity to be successful at that, but no. I think this is utterly stupid for the Green Bay Packers to convert a higher rate than any other team in the NFL since 2022 on 3rd and 4th and 1s on tush pushes or QB sneaks. I think it's utterly ridiculous because this is just a part of the game. It's like I mentioned, it's like taking the 3 away from Steph Curry. It's what the NBA did years ago by taking away the dunk. I mean, or actually, it was at college, or basketball, whatever you want to say. College, the NBA, they took away the dunk because one player was so good at it. I think it's utterly ridiculous. And honestly, it's ironic that the Packers are so good at it, and yet someone in their front office saying that it takes no skill. No, it just so happens that the team that really made it a prominent play, their quarterback could just squat 600 pounds. Maybe get Jordan Love to be squatting 600 pounds, and maybe he'll be a little bit better at it. Because think about it, the mobile quarterback, the NFL was filled with pocket passes, and that's the way to success. Great defense, running game, and a pocket passer. Now it's moving towards, running backs are although I think this year that's going to change, but running backs were considered a replaceable position, and then if you have a mobile quarterback, he could essentially be your running back. Because we've seen Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Mahomes has got legs on him. Purdy also comes up. I know he's not a mobile quarterback in the sense of the Lamar Jackson, the Jalen Hurts part, but he made some back-breaking runs in the NFC Championship game, not this year, but the year prior. So it's really just about, how the NFL is shifting, and I think banning this play, it's just sad.
I don't understand why Green Bay would want to ban it when they're one of the most successul teams at it.
It's sad. That's all it is. It's just a sad situation that's what we're coming down to. That we have to ban a play just because. By the way, everybody knows it's coming, so it's not like this surprise play, like a fake punt or a fake kick or whatever the case may be. Or now even onside kicks you can't even surprise them with an onside kick. But there's no surprise factor. As soon as they line up in that formation, you know what's coming.
That's why I don't understand why more teams don't, move out of that play when they line up and it looks exactly that's what they're going to do, and maybe they've done it 15, 20 times in a row out of that formation. Why don't they, if they think that there's a chance they might not make it, have the quarterback take it and run around the end? Everybody's all bunched in there trying to stop it, I would think, or have one of the wide receivers, kind of jump out there and just lob him the ball. It should be an easy touchdown. I don't know why they don't try that.
And maybe they will. I've seen a couple plays on social media of some college teams lining up in the tush-push formation, and the quarterback takes the ball and just hands it behind his back to the running back, and he runs outside. That's a very probable thing that maybe teams will do. But I think it could also be, and obviously some statistics will come out about it, potential injury risk, because we have to remember, early in Mahomes' career, now he's only played, 7 or 8 years in the NFL, but early in Mahomes' career, they did a QB sneak, and Mahomes ended up getting hurt. We don't see Mahomes doing QB sneaks anymore. We leave it to Noah Gray, Travis Kelce, tight ends doing those QB sneaks.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the Ravens, Mark Andrews takes the QB sneaks because Lamar Jackson could just run the football. He doesn't need to line up right under center and push like a Tom Brady did. And by the way, nobody was complaining about the QB sneak when Brady was super successful doing it. I'm pretty sure he had a 90-plus success rate on his quarterback sneaks. His first ever touchdown with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, week 1 against the Saints. His first touchdown was a quarterback sneak. So, and that was 43 years old. Nobody's complaining about the quarterback sneak because it's essentially the same thing, except the only difference is
You don't have someone pick you up
back.
and push you over the line.
Well, I mean, you could. If you get stopped at the line, you have your running back maybe give you an extra push.
I mean, when Jalen Hurts does it, they pick him right up off the ground and push him up over the top.
Yeah, it's kind of like the victory formation, except it's a legitimate
pick him up and throw him.
Basically,
it's like a pass. It's past the body.
Yeah, past the Jalen Hurts. That's what you do. I mean, no, I think it's utterly ridiculous. This play should not be banned. If you want to say that it takes no skill, and yet again, let's bring up the number one more time, you convert a quarterback sneak or the tush push at a higher rate on 3rd and 4th and 1 since 2022 than the Philadelphia Eagles, who created the damn play, and significantly higher than the NFL average of these conversions, then what are you complaining about?
Yeah, I think
if it works, why change it?
Yeah, and I think from an excitement factor, you see more teams going for it on 4th down when they have this formation and they have this play, and you see the success rate 84% on average.
Right.
So you get more teams going for it on 4th down. I like that.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's also like a low risk thing too. Even though it should be high risk because everybody knows what's coming, the play is just very successful. It's like, hey, why ban something that anybody could do? Anybody could be successful at it. Most teams are very successful at it. And you're like, well, okay, let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Yeah, it could be boring. Stop it. Then you add excitement to it.
It's not boring when it's on 4th down and it's late in the game and they're in their own territory.
Well, when you're playing against the Eagles, you know it's coming. Like, for instance, look
at their percentage, 90% success rate, so it makes sense to go for it. The analytics are going to say go for it.
And by the way, in the playoff game, in the wild card win, the Packers also stopped it twice in the Week 1 game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So they've even stopped the team that notoriously uses this play, and yet they're complaining about it.
It's odd that they'd be the one to complain about it.
And it just so happens that maybe, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you. Yeah, it does it. I mean, from a standpoint, it's very simple, and maybe to an outsider, it's like, hey, it doesn't take a lot of skill. But I could bring up the Buffalo Bills again in the AFC Championship game. They played that terribly, and it cost them because Josh Allen did the exact same thing 7 or 8 times.
Well, that's why I say
they put out a 200-pound one 200-pound running back. The Eagles have a tight end and a running back whose nickname is Quadzilla, and their quarterback can squat 600 pounds. The strategy is just stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversion rate, I'm sure, would be much higher if the Bills played it better.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll work on that in the offseason.
I think they should. Or, I don't know, change directions. You kept going to the left, go right.
Yeah. Or something as I say, audible out of it.
Yeah, just do a flip over to James Cook if you want.
Just lob a little pass to somebody. Yeah. There's not going to be anybody back there. Everybody's up on the line.
It's the quarterback sneak, but you add a little bit of a push to it. I don't see an issue in that. I really don't. Yeah. Maybe someone else will. I personally, I don't. All right, let's switch it up a little bit. Let's go to some basketball, and it's interesting. At the time, number 10, now number 7, St. John's ends up sweeping UConn for the first time since 1999 in the 2000 season with their 89-75 win on Sunday. All 5 starters for St. John's were in double digits, which has been a long time since that's happened for them. The star player, though, Kadari Richmond, stepping up in the second half. He went 6 of 13 from the floor, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, a total of 18 points, tied for the highest, along with Zuby Ejiofor. UConn, not great, unranked for the second week in a row. It's an ugly season for the UConn Huskies and for Dan Hurley. Here's my question to you. How impressive was St. John's win over the 2-time defending champion UConn Huskies?
I think it was quite impressive. We were at the game. There are a lot of UConn fans there. UConn started out okay. They got up 6-0. But then St. John's came back, and I felt like they kind of dominated there after a while. At halftime, they had 50 points. I can't remember. They were up by how much at halftime? Almost 20. I believe 20.
It was,
Yeah, close 50 to 18, 30, 18, something like that. They were up by a lot. 50, yeah. And then in the second half, UConn scored a few points more, but St. John's, they had a comfortable lead, and they kind of maintained it. So I enjoyed the game. I thought it was good. The St. John's fans are going wild here. I mean, there aren't any other basketball teams in New York. St. John's is our team. So
we got Syracuse.
Yeah, but they're up north. I mean,
still
in New York City, there's no big team. So This is and St. John's has not been good for a long time. I mean, they're 17-0 this year at home. They're 6-2 away, and they're 2.5 game lead over Creighton right now for first place in the Big East. They've won 11 of 15 home games by double digits. That's pretty impressive. And their overall record 24-4 and 15-2 in the Big East. Fantastic season. They beat UConn, dominating in dominating fashion. As I said, 89-75 on Sunday. They won with what I thought was very balanced scoring and great defense. Their defense is really suffocating. I mean, they pressed almost the whole game, and they caused quite a number of turnovers there. The other thing, I mean, we went to some games last year, and this team is so much better than last year's team, and the depth. They had people coming off the bench in the first half that looked really good too. So, as I said, balanced scoring, as you say, Ejiofor hit 18 points, 9 boards, 6 assists. Richmond, 18 points, 3 boards, 4 assists. Lewis Jr., 14 points, 5 boards. Scott, 13 points, 8 boards, 2 assists. Smith, 12 points, 7 boards, 8 assists. They currently ranked 7th in the country. At the NCAA in-season rankings, the last time they ranked St. John's number 16. I'm sure they're higher than that now. There's only 3 weeks to go now before the selection process for March Madness. Only Big East school selected in the top 16 at that time. This was back on the 15th of January. Their current rank is likely higher in the NCAA ranking, I'm sure, since they moved up to number 7 overall. Tino is 54-21 record in March Madness. That's the 3rd highest winning percentage among active coaches. He's guided 5 teams to March Madness, made 7 Final Fours, and won 2 championships, Kentucky in 1996 and Louisville in 2013. I think the other thing that's happening here that I think a lot of people are thinking about, maybe not so many talking about, is Lou Carnesecca's influence here. I wonder if, as I told you, Nate, the ghost of Lou Carnesecca is playing a role in St. John's success this year. He died back last November, and he would have been, he was 99 years old. He would have turned 100 right before one of the St. John's games this year, and they celebrated his 100th birthday at that game. He coached St. John's from 65 to 70 and 73 to 92. He was 526 and 200 over 24 seasons. He reached the postseason every year he coached the team. He made the Final Four in 1985. He was the Basketball Writers Association National Coach of the Year in 83 and 85. The St. John's Alumni Hall is named Carnesecca Arena, and it was named in 2004. And he coached the ABA New York Nets for 2 seasons, and the first year he coached them, he made the finals. Now, he's affectionately known as Louie. Since he retired 32 years ago, the Johnnies have only reached the 20-win mark 10 times and only made the postseason 3 times since his retirement back in 1992. As I mentioned, he died this past November at 99 years old and has been honored in many ways this year. In December, St. John's versus Kansas State, Rick Pitino wore a sweater similar to the one that Carnesecca used to wear in every game and was known for, and they won 88-71. The game was played at Carnesecca Arena. Before the game, there was a big video tribute to Carnesecca and a moment of silence. And then the team wore shirts that said, shooting shirts that said 526 on it, honoring his career win total. And there's a court decal now in the arena commemorating him. In January, they had Lou Carnesecca Day versus Butler. Was played on the 4th of January, the day before what would have been his 100th birthday. The fans received a replica statue, and St. John's won that game 70-62. A number of other ways they're honoring him, digital billboards on the Long Island Expressway, the Whitestone Expressway, and the New Jersey Turnpike. They don't let anyone sit in his usual seat now in Section 7, row JJ, seat 3. They're selling Lou Carnesecca and Rick Pitino trading cards. St. John's having one of its best seasons since the mid-'80s when Louis coached the team to the Final Four in 1985. So I'm wondering what you think, Nate, about Lou Carnesecca and St. John's overall.
All respect to probably one of the greatest coaches, the greatest coach St. John's ever had. I don't think Lou Carnesecca has much to do with this season as much as it does to do with Rick Pitino's consistent second-year increase in winning percentage with every single team he's ever coached in college basketball. If you take his career winning percentage, which is already phenomenal, but instead of taking just his career winning percentage and you actually expand it all the way, and by the way, his career winning percentage is 73%. That's 27th all-time in college basketball history. If you just take the second years, it goes from 73.9 to 77.2. That would be 15th best in college basketball. Higher than Coach K and higher than John Calipari, two of some of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time. So that's just how great that second year with a school, the whole nother level that Rick Pitino takes it. But something that's interesting is that Rick Pitino has done this before. Since 2011, there's only been 2 teams to shoot very poorly from 3, meaning like 33% or less, and make the Final Four. It was Rick Pitino's Final Four team with Louisville, and then the following year, his championship-winning team at Louisville, 2011, 2012, and then 2012, 2013. Those 2 teams shot 33% from 3 and 31% from 3 and made the Final Four and won a national championship. And by the way, those Louisville Cardinals made 68.6% of their free throws. This St. John's team can't hit free throws. I mean, they are shooting, I think, sub 30%, maybe it improved after their dominant performance over UConn. But they were shooting like 28% from 3, and they've only lost 4 games because their defense, currently based on defensive ranking, is 4th in the nation. And depending on how you look at it, if you look at the adjusted one, they're actually 3rd best in the nation. But this was a statement win. This was bigger than, some of their earlier wins in the season. Last year, they beat Creighton. They were unranked, going up against a phenomenal Creighton team. They upset them. We were also at that game. But I think this was probably the biggest win. We could talk about the Marquette win. That was also a phenomenal win this season. We could talk about the first UConn game being down by a lot of points and then coming back and beating them late. R.J. Lewis hitting the game sealer on the out-of-bounds shot. No, but for me, though, this was their biggest win because this had a bunch of implications on it. Like, for instance, if Creighton lost, they would have sealed the Big East. Instead, Creighton beat Georgetown handily, but that was a given. So they have an opportunity very soon to clinch the Big East. But no, this was a massive win because you're going up against Dan Hurley, the back-to-back defending champions. You already kicked them, and now you're kicking them when they're down. You took last game, which was already a brutal beatdown by UConn early in the first half, and then you ended up beating them in that game. But this time, you come out of the gate, you go down 6-0. R.J. Lewis hits a 3, and he actually scores a couple threes with a couple bad plays, although this was his first game back. And then you just blow him out of the water. We were at the game, and I hate to say this, but I have to. Every single media timeout or team timeout, Dan Hurley's talking to the refs. Every single time. He was complaining about Aaron Scott losing a shoe. He was the only one in the entire arena complaining about Aaron Scott losing a shoe. And it just so happens that St. John's got the ball, so it was a whole nother thing. But no, Dan Hurley is one of the most annoying coaches in college basketball, and he only gets away with it because he's a back-to-back national champion winner. And I actually looked at the numbers. Dan Hurley, without 4 or 5 NBA players, is an average to below-average college coach. Those are just the statistics. The past 2 years, he had 5 and 4 NBA players on his team. The other previous ones where he had 2 or 1, he wasn't a good coach whatsoever. I'm not going to say barely above 500 because I think one time he went 18-10. But he wasn't a great coach. He wasn't the Dan Hurley that got an offer from the Los Angeles Lakers. He's not the Dan Hurley that went back-to-back national champions. And maybe that's just the way that college basketball needs to be. When you have 4 or 5 NBA prospects, then you win the national championship. But right now, I even saw a clip today. Rick Pitino doesn't know how many of his players are going to make the NBA. I think R.J. Lewis has a very good shot. I think Zubi Ejiofor has a phenomenal shot. Simeon Wilcher needs to work on his game a little bit, but I think he's extremely young. He's a sophomore right now. He needs to improve his game a little bit, but I think he has some potential there. But really, there's a shot that none of these players get drafted. I think R.J. Lewis has a shot, but I think he should come back for his senior year just to solidify his place. Because the step from last year where I saw him, where he was already a pretty productive player with a team with Danish Jenkins and Joel Soriano that tried their very best to carry a St. John's team that was extremely young, and Rick Pitino is kind of establishing his culture there. He even said at one point that this was probably the worst coaching experience he's ever had. And take a look at his NBA coaching career, and it wasn't pretty. Him saying that about this St. John's team, it wasn't good. We actually covered that on the show. But R.J. Lewis taking that next step and carrying this team along with Zuby Ejiofor, I mean, I think he has a shot at being in the NBA, but currently I'm not sure that any of these guys are definites to make the NBA. But we take a look at UConn. I mean, Caravan, Solo Ball. You got a couple of guys there that are probably going to make the NBA, but not 4 or 5 of them like Dan Hurley's had. So I thought this was a phenomenal win. Zuby Ejiofor played out of his mind. Aaron Scott coming up with some big-time shots there. R.J. Lewis playing effective basketball, although he didn't shoot particularly well. But defensively, this is where this team thrives. And I think what's important about why this team has a shot at making the Final Four, has a shot at potentially winning a championship, is their incredible defense, which you mentioned before, but also phenomenal rotations, and they're very deep. But it's not only deep offensively, it's also deep defensively because their offense isn't great. It's the defensive pace that you can maintain when you put out a Ruben Prey or a Sadiku Inbinayo. You throw those guys out there, and they can still keep up that defensive intensity. Simeon Wilcher could improve his defense a little bit, got into foul trouble early, but they have an opportunity if they just maintain status quo and play tremendous defense with incredible rotations, that you can go up against a potential Duke, hinder Cooper Flagg potentially, and have a shot at making the national championship. Now, that is maybe overstated there.
You go to St. John's, I believe.
I do go to St. John's. Yeah. But, I'm taking a look at this, and I'm looking at the facts. What team right now can go up against St. John's and say, you know what, we're going to try to overpower your defense and capitalize on your poor offensive skill? Any team could say that because they don't shoot the ball well. They can't shoot threes. This was a phenomenal game from them. They shot 42% from three. But this is not a good offensive team, so what could a team do? Say, you know what? We're going to try to break your defense. They pressed 2 minutes into the first half. So they're already trying to keep up defensive intensity the entire game, and they don't stop going into the second half.
Yeah, I think the thing that I was impressed with in this game that we saw was their ability to hit the free throws and their ability to shoot the three-pointer.
I think they had 92% from the free throw line.
Over 40% from three. If they can continue to do that and continue to do everything else that they do well, I think they will have a shot at going very, very deep and maybe getting to the championship game. And that's what we'll be rooting for because we're big fans of them. But, the ability to shoot the three and make your free throws and have balanced scoring. Look how balanced the scoring was in this game. It was, let me go back and take a look at that.
Zuby Ejiofor 18, R.J. Lewis 14,
I
Aaron
went through
Scott
that.
13, Richmond 18.
Yeah.
All starters were in double digits.
Yeah, and their rebounding was good, and the assist numbers were up there too. So that was pretty good. I was very impressed with them.
You had a 6-foot point guard. Came out.
You had 7 rebounds.
6-foot point guard getting 7 boards.
Yeah.
They're 6th in offensive rebounds in the entire nation. At 364 college teams, they're 6th in offensive rebounds, 6th in total rebounds, 6th in blocks. But you talk about they shoot the 3-ball better. I don't think that's going to happen because they're 344th in three-point percentage and they're 331st in three-pointers made.
Yeah, well, maybe they're getting some confidence. Maybe they're getting some confidence. I mean, Connecticut, not the team they were last year for sure.
Not even close.
But still, a credible opponent.
Not this year.
To a number of teams.
Creighton's better, Marquette's better.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, there's a shot UConn doesn't make. That's crazy to say, just based on the. There's a shot UConn doesn't make the big tournament.
They won't make it right now. Do you think?
Currently, they're not even ranked.
They're not even ranked.
I would also say that this. It's been since the last time they actually made a decent run in the tournament. They lost in the second round, but it's been about 10 years, 10, 11 years. 2014, 2015 since St. John's made the legitimate tournament. There was a first 4 loss in there at some point, but I'm talking about like the actual legitimate tournament there. So Yeah, they lost in the second round in 2014, 2015. So
this is big for St. John's. I mean, this is their first bid since 2019. They're going to get to March Madness for sure. They haven't won a tournament game since 2000. There's been no advance past the first round this century, and they have one Final Four appearance in 72 years. So this is big. This is really big for New York. This is big for St. John's fans. We're excited about it.
And with the way the Knicks have been playing recently, they're really the only New York team you could root for. I've been in Madison Square Garden a number of times watching the Knicks. St. John's was, you could argue, probably louder than the Knicks fans have been this year.
It was loud there.
It was very loud.
And it was packed.
Oh,
it was
sold out crowd.
Yeah.
Right now, St. John's is the New York team. New York basketball team, I should say.
Yeah.
The Knicks can't beat anybody good, and we're going to talk about them later on in the show, but
and maybe they're the Cinderella.
St. John's the only very successful New York basketball team, if you want to get nitpicky about me in the comments.
Well, the Knicks have a winning record. I mean, they are 37
They can't beat anybody good. Yeah, beat up on the Charlotte Hornets.
But they're going to make the playoffs.
Beat up on bad teams.
Maybe they can, if they can get their defense going. We're going to talk about that.
We are.
So.
But before that, we're actually going to take a quick break. But coming up, the Golden State Warriors, after a decently slow start to the season, and hovering over missing the play-in tournament, since acquiring Jimmy Butler, they're 5-1. We'll talk about how far they can go, as well as the New York Knicks can't beat anybody good. They can't beat the top 3 NBA teams. So we'll discuss: are they contenders or pretenders? Right after this break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance, and why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of tonight's show. So, since acquiring the disgruntled Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat earlier this month, after a dominant 126-102 victory over the Dallas Mavericks, it looks like the Warriors have gone 5-1 since getting Jimmy Butler, improving their season record to 30-27. Warriors, I guess you want to call him a forward, now center, because they play him at the 5 spot. But Warriors forward Draymond Green recently spoke on his podcast with Baron Davis about how far he thinks this rendition of the Golden State Warriors with Jimmy Butler, how far they can go. Take a listen.
I believe that we got the pieces to do it. And like I said, I know what that look and feel like. You got all these people out here talking about what I said and how I'm going to do it. But you did it before. I've done it over and over. Over and over and over and over. I know what it look and feel like. I 1,000% wholeheartedly stand all 10 toes down on everything I said. We winning that.
So how far do you think the Warriors with Jimmy Butler can go?
I think it's a little premature to say they're going to win the NBA championship, but I do think that they'll get into the playoffs. I mean, they're a playoff team. They're a play-in team now at number 9. Their record 30-27, just barely above 500. They're 16 games back. They're 20-19 in the conference. Their home record 16-13 away, 14-14. Last 10, they're 6-4, won 3 in a row. You see the effect of Jimmy Butler there. Since acquiring Butler, as you mentioned, 5-1. The only loss was to the Mavs, 118-113 in the last game before the All-Star break, and then they annihilated the Mavs here this past Sunday. I think he's made a big difference. That Draymond Green saying they they're going to win the NBA title now. I think that's a little premature. Steve Kerr said the trade itself, we needed it. We felt we were kind of treading water. We couldn't get any traction in the season, and Mike Dunleavy sensed that and made the move. And you can feel the shift and made. Sometimes you got to shake things up, and we shook things up. And Butler's averaging 20 points, 5.7 rebounds, 5.5 assists in the 6 games. You can tell the fans, it's another thing Kerr said, you can tell the fans see the difference. They feel the momentum just like we do. It was an important shift. Jimmy gives us some swagger, he said. Draymond Green says we felt like we were right there but couldn't get over the hump because there was a missing piece, which we found in Butler. Curry, he's showing his greatness more with Butler now by his side. Since Butler's arrival, he has taken his game, I think, to another level, reminding everyone he's still one of the best, most dominant players in the NBA. Since the trade, he's 29 points a game, 5.7 assists, 4.2 rebounds, 49% shooting, 40% from three, averaging 5 3-pointers per game. Before the trade, he was 23 points a game, 6.1 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. So he's definitely, Butler's helping his game a lot. With Butler, he can play more freely and focus on dominating offensively. I think Butler's ability to get to the free throw line has been a big thing for the Warriors because the Warriors have had an issue with this, drawing fouls and getting fouls. He's getting 9.2 fouls per game, and he's making 8.2 of those shots. Golden State struggled, as I mentioned in the past, drawing those fouls. Also, I think he brings a defensive intensity to the Warriors that they haven't had in the past. So this is a great trade for the Warriors. This is big for them, and I do think they'll make the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe they can make a run. Look what Miami did with Butler a couple of years ago when everyone thought they were done. They made it to the NBA Finals. Can the Warriors do that? I think it's a little premature to say that. We'll be watching, though.
I think it's actually fascinating just how actually really effective and efficient the Warriors have looked with Jimmy Butler, and I think there's actually a new level of intensity that the Warriors are bringing offensively. Because Jimmy Butler, we heard from the Heat, he wanted to be traded and all of this situation, got suspended a number of times for conduct detrimental to the team. But since coming to the Warriors, he looks happy, playing with Steph Curry at an effective rate. I mean, since going there, he has a plus 9.3 plus minus. Since joining the team, the offense for the Warriors is significantly better. Assist numbers look great. Steve Kerr is very happy to have him on the team because he even said that his passing has been tremendous. He's not like the go out and score a bunch of threes guy. He's keeps up with the flow the way the Warriors play, and that's what he really loves about him. But I think there's actually a pretty decent shot, at least for them to get higher in the West, potentially get out of the play-in tournament, and because they're only one game out of being tied for the 6th seed. So there's an opportunity for them to even skip the play-in tournament and play one of the higher teams, so the 3 seed in the Western Conference, which I honestly think with this version of the Golden State Warriors, I'm not sure how many teams the Warriors fear. Because the thing with Oklahoma City is they draw a lot of fouls. And even the Minnesota Timberwolves head coach, he was even calling out that you can't really touch Shea, otherwise you're going to get a foul called on you. In the playoffs, that doesn't really happen. They like to hold their whistle, so James Harden, his ability to be a free throw merchant was hindered a little bit. But actually, taking a look at their upcoming schedule, I think the level of success will actually remain at a pretty high level. So they're 5-1 with Jimmy Butler right now. But tonight, in about 3 hours from now, they play the Charlotte Hornets. That's the win. They're one of the worst teams in basketball. The Orlando Magic, that might cause them a little bit of trouble, but I think that'll be a perfectly fine win. The 76ers, they're probably the most disappointing team in the NBA. That should be a win, with Joel Embiid seemingly getting benched every game, and also about him potentially looking at getting surgery. The Charlotte Hornets, again, I'm sure that'll be a win. The New York Knicks, I think, will be an interesting competition, but outside of that, the Nets, Pistons, Blazers, Kings, all potential wins there. And then you get into a little bit of a decently hot spell to sort of end the year. March 15th, you play the Knicks again, then you play the Nuggets and Bucks. Those are 3 teams back-to-back to back. Then you play the Raptors, the Hawks, the Heat, the Pelicans, the Spurs. And then you play the Grizzlies, Lakers, Nuggets, Rockets, Suns. And then the Spurs, Blazers, Clippers to end the year out. But you have a couple of decent, a 3-game stretch of decently hard teams and a 5-game stretch of hard teams. So there's a chance to really see what the Warriors are made out of. And in fact, up to this point, they've had the 5th hardest strength of schedule in the entirety of the NBA. But I think going on a little bit of an easy spell is a good thing to do. But Jimmy Butler's impact since coming to the Warriors, the numbers speak for themselves. Point differential is 4th best. Turnover differential is the number 1 turnover differential in the NBA. They're 2nd in free throw percentage. They're 6th in offensive rating, 5th in defensive rating, and net rating that is 4th in the NBA since Jimmy Butler came over to the Golden State Warriors. So his impact is clearly being felt. It's just a question of how far can they get. Because if we take a look at the West, and I still think for the Golden State Warriors, I do think size is going to be an issue because Draymond Green playing the 5, while offensively that might be okay with him setting up Steph Curry and Draymond Green, I think going up against OKC with Chet Holmgren and also Isaiah Hartenstein, that could be an issue. Denver going up against Nikola Jokic, that could be an issue. The Lakers, they also have a size issue, but LeBron James, Dalton Connect, Austin Reeves, now Luka Doncic, that could potentially be an issue. Also, Rui Hachimura dropped like 20-something points recently, so who knows? The Rockets are a great defensive team. That could cause potential issues. Dallas going up against them, I think it was great. Beating the crap out of Klay Thompson and then late in the 3rd quarter, showboating. I think it was an interesting look, but that's just kind of how Steph Curry and the Warriors roll right now. When they have high confidence, they talk loud. Steph Curry puts them to sleep. So I do think that there is a shot, but to say that currently they'll make a title run, I need to see them go up against a little bit tougher competition, but just getting out of the play-in tournament to be a solidified playoff team, I think that would be a great first step for them.
I just don't see. You mentioned their height. I think that's an issue with Draymond Green playing the 5 spot, right? How is he going to beat Jokic? I don't see that.
Well,
I see Denver.
Quentin Post doesn't play a lot of minutes, but he played recently. He had a couple nice threes, a couple plays down low. But no, they're not a very tall team.
I think Jokic and Denver, they're on a mission. I think they want to. They feel like they got surprised there last year and lost. To Minnesota, right? They lost
Denver last year. Let me look it up real quick for you. Yeah, lost to Minnesota in 7.
Yeah, and that in 7. That was a total surprise. Everyone thought they were going back to the finals. It was going to be Celtics Nuggets in the finals, and they got knocked out early. And I think they left a very bad taste in their mouth. I think they're going to really ramp it up here down the stretch, and they're going to be tough to beat. But it'd be fun to see the Warriors get deep in the playoffs. I like watching Steph Curry. I like Jimmy Butler, actually. He does bring a swagger with him, and he brings a physicality that the Warriors really haven't had. They have Draymond Green, who is sometimes a head case, making wacky, flagrant fouls and things. But does that really a toughness that he brings? I think that with Jimmy, that they get that a little bit. Maybe they draw a few more fouls, get to the foul line more often. Give Steph Curry a little more freedom to be himself and be more focused on the offense. So it's going to be fun to watch. We'll start to really get into basketball now that football's over, and this is the time when people start really getting more interested in it, and we'll see what happens.
I do think it's interesting, though, that there's a shot because Jimmy Butler out there, he plays with a high quickness. But they are currently 30th in free throws made and 30th in free throw percentage. So they are not going to the foul line. They're 25th in free throw attempts. So they're not taking a lot of free throws. They're last in making them. So there's a shot there. But they also are 3rd in rebounds, 7th in assists, 8th in steals. So they're actually a pretty high defensive team. And also, obviously, with Steph Curry being out there, they're okay offensively just because they've really only had Steph Curry being that piece. I think with Podziemski having to be that 2 to fill in the Klay Thompson role, I think was not a recipe for success. Earlier in the season, they put it on Buddy Hield to be that guy. And actually, early in the year, he was surprisingly really good for him. And then, he just became a normal guy, the same way the 76ers used him, coming off the bench. And in the playoff game against the Knicks, he dropped like 20-something points against the Knicks, hitting a number of threes in the playoff game. But Podziemski right now, he's extremely young. He can't be your number 2. Draymond Green for sure isn't your number 2. Jimmy Butler fills that number 2 spot, so Podziemski can be your number 3 or even your number 4 on some nights, depending on who has a hot hand. But Steph Curry needed a star. That's why we heard right during the trade deadline, the Warriors are desperate. They're calling every team to try to pluck a star away. They even tried reuniting with Kevin Durant, but Durant didn't want to go there, and reportedly it wasn't because of his relationship with Draymond Green. It was because he didn't want to move middle of the season. Now, could we see Durant reunite with the Warriors in the offseason? Potentially. Potentially. I think that would be, because Jimmy Butler got a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
So there's a shot. If they work, some money around potentially, that we could see Steph, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and KD.
That would be
an interesting
formidable team.
That would be a very interesting team because even at Kevin Durant, was he 36 years old? He's still averaging 27 points. It's crazy.
He could do better than that if he was on the Warriors with back with the Warriors. I think
it would be much more efficient. I think he wouldn't need to take as many shots. But Kevin Durant does that. He averages 27 points every single season, basically. But I think that could be an interesting thing. But this current Warriors team, do I think they can make a long run? It wouldn't surprise me, actually, if Curry gets a hot hand one night and playoff Jimmy Butler comes into full swing, that this team could make the Western Conference Finals. But I think going up against OKC at its height, at its peak, if they're also in the Western Conference Finals, I think that's where you could maybe run into some trouble. I don't think Denver is the same team that won the NBA Finals a couple of years ago. I don't think they're the same team. But also in Jimmy Butler's case, he doesn't need to be absolutely gassed like he was during the bubble against the Lakers when he was averaging, I think, 24 points, something like that. The next time he was averaging 14. And we saw him, I forget if it was Game 5 or Game 6. It may have been Game 5. Where you see him during like a dead ball sort of break, over there just chilling, absolutely exhausted because he was doing everything. And then, we saw him in the first round of the playoffs a couple of years ago when they made the NBA Finals. Game 1, or was it Game 4 or something, comes out and absolutely obliterates the Milwaukee Bucks. Shocks them in Games 4 and 5 to take that series away from him. And then, you go up against the Boston Celtics, you go up 3-0, then they eventually come back and you'll make it 3-3, and then you end up beating them and then getting blown out in the NBA Finals. But Jimmy Butler doesn't need to be the guy because that's Steph Curry. That's Steph Curry, and Podziemski can get the hot hand, and Draymond Green can play efficient basketball here and there. Mm-hmm. But Jimmy Butler doesn't need to be the guy to carry the Miami Heat anywhere.
Right. Well, I think the seeding is going to be very important for the Warriors if they are in the playoffs, and it'd be nice if they could avoid the play-in.
Yeah.
Well,
currently, let's just say hypothetical situation: the Warriors get the 6th seed. They would play the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm taking Warriors and other 5 or 6 in that series.
Okay.
Because the Warriors and the Grizzlies, they do not like each other. But Steph Curry, I trust him going up against the Grizzlies to take care of business. Him and Draymond Green, as long as Draymond Green doesn't get any stupid technical fouls. Although Dylan Brooks isn't there, so maybe, there's a shot for Draymond Green not to get a stupid tech. I would take the Warriors in 5 or 6 against the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't even be...
Well, Ja Morant and Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart's
I don't think
on
Marcus
the Grizzlies.
Smart's there anymore.
I thought he was...
Yeah, he's not there no more.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Where's he? Where's Marcus Smart play now?
I'm not sure. And I don't keep up with Marcus Smart. He currently plays for Washington.
Oh, wow.
He started on the Grizzlies this year, but then moved over to Washington. He only has in 2 games. So he's currently out. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So he went to trade deadline. He was moved?
I'm not sure if it was at the trade deadline, but supposedly he's going to make his appearance. February 9th report says Smart will likely make his Wizards debut after the All-Star break.
Huh.
Well, currently it's February 25th.
Oh.
So I'm not sure when he's going to play, but there you go. Actually, he may have already played because this is what he started 2 games. So Wizards, to answer your question.
Okay.
Washington Wizards.
Thanks.
Warriors, wouldn't surprise me if they make the Western Conference Finals.
I think if they start out against the Grizzlies, then that would be that'd be good for them. They could get it going, and they got to get to the 6th seed. Right now, they're 9th, right?
Yes,
they're 9th.
But they're also 1 game out from the 6th seed.
Okay.
So I think they get 1 game. All right, let's get to our final topic of today's show, which is the New York Knicks. Once again, the Knicks were outclassed by a superior Eastern Conference opponent in the Boston Celtics, getting blown out 118-105. That drops them to 0-7 against the three top teams in the NBA. The Thunder, the Cavs, and the Boston Celtics. They lose on an average of 20.1 points per game. That's their margin of defeat in these 7 games against those top 3 teams in the NBA. They also, about 48 hours before this game against the Boston Celtics, they suffered a 37-point loss against the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is the biggest loss in the Tom Thibodeau era of the New York Knicks. They are still the 3 seed, but we're really seeing what the top 3 teams in the NBA are. Cut it, and then the drop-off in the other seeds in the NBA. Normally, if you think about the 3 seeds, because we have to realize the Memphis Grizzlies are the 3 seed in the West. They're closer to the OKC Thunder than the Knicks are to the Cavs and the Boston Celtics. So there is a massive gap in between the top 3 seeds in the Eastern Conference, with the Celtics and the Cavs and then the Knicks being there. It's a massive drop-off. Here's my question to you. A lot of expectations to enter this year. You got Mikal Bridges, traded for Karl Anthony Towns. There was a lot going on. You decided to get off Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle. Do you think that the Knicks are contenders or pretenders?
I think it's too soon to tell, actually. And I say my takeaway, though, from all that you just said is the Knicks aren't just falling short against the NBA's elite teams. They're getting crushed. I mean, they're 0-7 against Cleveland, Boston, and OKC. More than a 20-point average margin of deficit. If you look at the scores of those games, the first game of the season, actually, Boston beat New York 118-105. Then they lost to Cleveland 142-105. Lost again to Boston 131-104. Lost to OKC 126-101. Lost again to OKC 117-107. Lost to Cleveland 110-104. And lost to Boston just this past Sunday 132-109. So they can't beat the elite teams, as you said. They have a good season overall, and they're probably a safe bet to remain a top 3 seed in the East. Both Towns and Brunson are having good seasons, headed for the All-NBA selections, I think. Josh Hart, one of the most impactful players in the league. The offense is elite. They've stayed relatively healthy. Mitchell Robinson's close to coming back now. But they can't beat the Cavs, Thunder, or the Celtics, and that's a big issue. And losing all those games by double digits, the big picture to me says the Knicks' defense is going to be a postseason problem for them, and it should be a strength as Thibodeau is a defensive coach. I'm surprised his defense is so poor this year against these elite teams. Anunoby, Hart, and Bridges are strong defensive players. Anunoby isn't totally healthy, and Robinson is just getting back. Maybe that will help in the paint protection a little bit. They just don't have the juice defensively, and I'm not sure why, with Tom Thibodeau being their coach who focuses on defense. They're near the bottom 10 in defensive efficiency. In their 7 losses to the elite teams, they've given up an average of 126 points per game, which are not a championship contending numbers, even with an elite offense. They have the personnel to be better defensively, but it has to come from Bridges, Anunoby, and Hart. Towns is not a strong defender in the paint. The team defense was built to be able to match up with two-way wing-dominant lineups like Boston, but so far that part hasn't gone according to plan for them.
I think 100% at this current moment that they are 100% pretenders, because we have to take a look at some situations. For one, yeah, they've been out Mitch Robinson. I think that's what's killed them, because currently Karl Anthony Towns is in the 7th percentile of rim defense. They have no interior defense. With Mitch Robinson probably a game or two away, and even Tom Thibodeau said recently that Mitch Robinson will be the starting center for the New York Knicks. That should be able to help them a little bit in the interior defense, because Karl Anthony Towns is not helping them anywhere in that realm. Also, Precious Achiuwa, who would also fill into that role occasionally, being that, that low guy. He's horrible. He's actually their worst defender currently. If you take a look at the numbers, Precious Achiuwa is the worst defender that the Knicks have. But I think really when it comes to these 7 games, we have to add context to it, at least 2 of them in my opinion. But in every single one of them, they've had horrible first quarters. Every single one of them. Minus probably one of them. So here's the point here's the points scored in the first quarter and then the point differential. The first game, we'll just go down. The 3 games against Boston, they scored 19, 19, and 24 points. With a minus 19, minus 11, and minus 19 point differential just in the first quarter. The 2 games against Cleveland so far, they scored 18 and 29 points. Minus 4, minus 12 in point differential. Against OKC the first time, or basically to open up the 2025 calendar year, they scored 30 points in the first quarter. That was still a minus 3 in the first quarter point differential-wise. And then the second game against OKC, which was only a week later, they scored 17 points in the first quarter, minus 14. So if you combine all those, they have a minus 82 point differential in the first quarter. If you can't start the games off well with a lead, you're not gonna do well. But how about the first half? Let's expand a little bit. Let's add another quarter in there. Well, against the Celtics, minus 21, minus 13, minus 19. Against Cleveland, the first game against Cleveland back in October 28th of 2024, they're actually plus 7. They finally get in the positive category. But this game, a couple days ago, 4 days ago, minus 27 at halftime. What about the games against OKC? Plus 12 at first half to open up this calendar year. The second game, minus 27. So the first halves of games normally don't go very well. But the context I want to add to the 2 of these games is the October 28th game against Cleveland. The Knicks doing a perfectly fine job. And then Darius Garland got 15 points in the fourth quarter, went 3 of 4 from 3, and Cleveland shot 64.7% from the floor in the fourth quarter. We're going to pick up a little bit of a pattern here. Just follow with me for a second. How about to open up the calendar year against OKC, where they actually played very well, only lost by 10 points, who I believe is 117-107. Well, Aaron Wiggins, a bench player, scored 15 points, shooting 4 of 4 from 3 in the fourth quarter. And what do Tom Thibodeau's teams normally are notorious for, and why they can't go very far? They average like 40 minutes per game. The top 5 players in minutes played, 3 of them are New York Knicks. Miles Bridges, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson. I think it's fatigue. You can't play guys 36, 37 minutes per game and expect them to play at high levels through each of those quarters through an 82-game season, because that does 2 things. One, increases fatigue, so when you get to the playoffs, you're not going to be able to play against tough teams who can go farther, who do have better rotations. Go up against the New York Knicks. We already saw that last year. And what we also saw last year is if you keep playing them an exorbitant amount of minutes, the injury risk is significantly higher, which we saw in the Pacers series last year, where we saw Mitch Robinson go down, I believe, in the first game. And then in the very last game, where they were basically going to get blown out anyway by the Pacers, Jalen Brunson had a hand issue. So I think right now, Tom Thibodeau, while he has brought New York Knicks basketball to a very respectable point, being one of the top seeds in the NBA the past couple years, and even, 3 years ago, they were a respectable team. This way of playing basketball, where you're averaging the 3 out of the 5 highest minutes played are going to Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, 1, 3, and 4 in the rankings. At some point, you got to realize that you got to trust your bench a little bit more.
Yeah, well, that's Tom Thibodeau, right? He plays his players many minutes. That's last year because they had some injury issues last year. But those guys are playing big minutes, and that got them. I think that was the reason they kind of faded there in the playoffs and wound up losing before they got to the conference finals. So. I don't know. This year, it's a question mark. You say they're pretenders. I think it's they have been so far. They can't beat the elite teams. So, will they be able to pick it up? You would think that
I would say for a normal team, yes.
But you would think Thibodeau would find a way. He's a defensive guru. Why can't he make those guys play defense a little bit better?
Well, speaking about
and one other thing,
yeah,
Mitchell Robinson coming back could be big, right?
I think it will be.
If he plays center. And they move Towns, who really rather play the
4 spot, yeah.
The 4 spot. and is a good outside shooter, I think maybe that could make a difference.
I think it will, because I think it'll, first of all, it increase second chance points with offensive rebounds, which, by the way, taking a look at the numbers for offensive rebounds, they're not ideal. They're 20th in the NBA in offensive rebounds. They need better, because last year, not only were they a better defensive team, 10th in defensive rating compared to 22nd this year, they were also 5th in net rating last year. This year, while they're 6th, that's because their offense is significantly better. I think they were 16th in points. They were 19th in points per game. This year they're 5th. So their offense is taking a massive spike, which is interesting. Their defense is plummeted. And by the way, going up against the Eastern teams, because the West teams, the only way you're going to face them when it matters the most is if you make the NBA Finals, which the Knicks haven't done in decades. The Knicks are 0-5 against the Cavs and the Celtics. They're outscored by an average of 21.2 points per game. And this is crazy. They allowed an average of 126.6 points on 52.6% shooting against the Celtics and the Cavs this year. Boston and Cleveland, here's the thing. We talk about the perimeter defenders of Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. Both those teams are averaging 19.2 threes per game on 44% shooting from the three. You're supposed to get upgrades by extending OG Anunoby on a $212 million contract and trading, the whole world for Mikal Bridges. This is what that trade was supposed to do, and you haven't been able to get it done.
Yeah, it's kind of on the coach.
Yeah, and by the way, talk about the offensive rebounds. This year they're 20th. Last year they were number 1 in the NBA. And that's because for a big portion of the beginning of the season, the number 1 offensive rebounder in the league was Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, and they had Hartenstein too.
Right, and that was also big because once Mitchell Robinson go down, who was able to pick up not only the offensive rebound slack, because we remember, I think it was against the 76ers, when Dante DiVincenzo got that clutch 3 late, that was off an Isaiah Hartenstein rebound off a Dante DiVincenzo miss. Hartenstein also picked it up on the defensive end, interior defense. That's where they don't really have
miss him.
anybody. Absolutely.
I think they miss him.
Because you have, a 6'8" guy in Precious Achiuwa trying to play the 5, you can't. Karl Anthony Towns is one of their worst defenders. I think we're taking a look now how great or how much of an impact offensively the Timberwolves valued Karl Anthony Towns, because they had the Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy Gobert playing down low. The Knicks don't have that type of dynamic because you have Precious Achiuwa coming in there, and then Karl Anthony Towns, and also sometimes Josh Hart goes out there, and he'll probably take the axe once Mitch Robinson gets out there to be the starter. But as it currently stands, if you can't beat any of the top teams, you're not going to go far. Because let's just say that it's a complete different situation in this year, by chance, because the Knicks are such a higher seed, they eventually make the Eastern Conference Finals. Most likely it's going to be against the Cavs or the Celtics. If you're 0-, I think they play the Cavs a couple more times here. Let's say you go 0-9 against them, they have all the momentum because you haven't beaten them a single time.
Well, maybe the Cavs and the Celtics will be overconfident.
Maybe the Celtics, because you know what's weird about the Celtics? They have a horrible home record again. Yeah. They do great on the road. I think they're 18-10 at home or something like that.
Yeah,
and that's something.
Their record is not that great this year. They lost 16 games.
Well, I mean, you can't always dominate with 65 wins.
Yeah, but look at the players they have. I guess the other teams have gotten a little better.
The Cavs have gone significantly better.
Yeah,
and then obviously OKC in the
Western
Celtics
Conference beat the Cavs last time they played them.
They always play close, though, generally. I mean, the Celtics are a tremendous team. They just won the NBA Finals. But, no, this Knicks team, as it currently stands, and, I'm not necessarily saying that, if Mitch Robinson goes out there and performs, I'm, eating my words here, because as it currently stands, if the Knicks can't beat any of the top teams, obviously they're pretenders, because you got to go through a couple of these teams unless first-round upsets, which, if you're the Celtics, that's a maybe. The Cavs, I don't know, because they've been so dominant, this entire season, but... Yeah, the only hope and prayer that the Knicks could get is a first-round upset, because then you're playing lesser-tier talent throughout the rest of the playoffs.
No, if they can sneak in at this 3 seed in the East,
I don't think it's a sneak, because they're 4.5 games above Milwaukee.
Yeah, okay.
They aren't playing very well.
So then they'll get an easier draw.
As it currently stands, they would play Detroit, who is 32-26.
Yeah.
So what? That's 5.5 games.
Yeah.
So, again, the gap from 1 and 2, which is the Cavs and the Celtics, that's very close. And then you go to the Knicks at the 3, and it's a massive drop-off. Milwaukee's severely inconsistent. Indy is inconsistent. Detroit. Great job on the comeback from the previous couple of years.
Yeah, right.
They're currently the 6th seed.
They went what? How long? Didn't they challenge the losing streak?
They
NBA?
broke it. They broke it. They
yeah.
were the losers. They were 14-68 last year. Now they're 32-26.
So that's a big turnaround.
This will probably be if all things go as they look. This will be their first playoff appearance since 2018-2019 when they lost in the first round. So there's a shot they make it, and my guess is if the current standings stay the way they are, the Knicks would play the Pistons. I would probably take the Knicks another sweep or take them in 5. That's just the way it would probably turn out for them. But you're going to need to play the top 3 teams. You're going to play at least the top 2 teams in the East at some point. You got to beat them. If you can't beat them, then what are we doing here? Why did you trade so much for Mikal Bridges? Why did you trade away Julius Randle? That was probably a contract situation. But Dante DiVincenzo. He averaged, 40% from 3? Now, what's crazy is that Dante's dealing with an injury thing, and Julius Randle also was dealing with an injury thing.
As usual.
Right, exactly. But also Mitchell Robinson, we haven't seen him since the playoffs last year.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been injury prone. And whether he'll be okay when he comes back, we'll see whether he can hang in there.
Hey, I need to see Mitch Robinson out there because I want to see. He hasn't played in nearly a year. Yeah. How will he look when he's out there?
Yeah. And has he really recovered once he gets out there and plays NBA ball, a few games? Will he re-injure himself? I hope not. I'd like to see him play well.
And then let's just say Mitch Robinson, it takes him a little while, so maybe they'll lose a game they should have won, or maybe 2 of those. But if he somehow gets in form within the next month, and we see him as he was before, being a tremendous interior defender and also a phenomenal offensive rebounder, that's where I think that the tide could shift for the Knicks.
Yeah.
Because then you have a better opportunity against Kristaps Porzingis or Jared Allen or any of these big guys where, okay, we can't stop them because they're the NBA. Like, these are NBA players. They're phenomenal players.
And maybe
but
slow them
down a little bit, because then Karl Anthony Towns could do his offensive tricks there. Then Jalen Brunson could be the maestro he could be, because Jalen Brunson is horrible at defense. I think this is one of his worst defensive seasons of his entire career. Karl Anthony Towns, like I mentioned, he's 7th in defense. He's in the 7th percentile of rim protection this season. He can't guard down low. He's terrible at it.
But that's not his position anyway.
Correct, but in this team, he needs to at least put in something.
Yeah.
And there's really no production there because it's a tremendous offensive output team. Defensively, run for the hills. 22nd in defensive rating.
Which is odd for Tom Thibodeau.
Correct. And that's why I think that when it comes down to it, Mitch Robinson should be something. But until that happens, my guess is we're going to see somewhat of the same, getting blown out in every single first quarter that you play against these top-tier teams and blown out in the first half of these games. And I mean, and what's crazy is, in the first half, the 2 I added context to, they were winning at halftime. But then in the fourth quarter, when they're out there for 46 minutes, all of a sudden you have guys coming off the bench like Aaron Wiggins dropping 15 points on 4-4 shooting from 3, and then you lose. Yeah. Or going up against the Cavs, early in the year, back in October. 3 of 4 from 3 gets 15 points. Cavs shoot 64.7% in the fourth quarter. I think you shoot, 33%. I think you shot 13% from 3.
That could be the fatigue issue you're talking about.
It's absolutely fatigue, and that's what Tom Thibodeau does. It's a sad thing because it requires a lot of energy, and you get so far, but then once it's the playoffs and then you're playing 7-game series, every other day with maybe a 2-day break in between when you're traveling, it's brutal.
Well, they don't have the depth. They haven't got the players they trust beyond the starting 6 or so.
Correct, and that's where Tom Thibodeau needs to come into play, and they have to hope if they're going to make the playoffs. But once they make the playoffs, that you have to blow out teams so in the fourth quarter you could rest a bunch of your starters, so then they will be fresh and ready for the next round or the next game. Instead of having them be out there in a close game, they're playing 42 minutes a game. Yeah. Because you have to play 42 minutes a game.
Well, they haven't been able to figure that part of it out.
No.
Ever since Thibodeau's been there, his players play big minutes in the playoffs.
Like I said, the top 5 minutes played this season, 3 of them are held by New York Knicks. You can't do that if you want them to play at a high intensity through 82 games plus the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's just not a recipe for success.
Just quickly before we end here,
sure.
There was a rumor that
No, they
got shot down.
They got shot down. Ian Rappaport.
But Gronk was coming back at 35 years old, would be 36 when he started playing. Long list of injuries over his career. Looks like he's going to stay retired.
I think it could have worked though, because I think he would be in the same role he was year one with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and as he was in 2018 with the New England Patriots. Basically 50% of his offensive snaps were in pass blocking or in run blocking. I think that's the only way that Gronk could be an effective tight end nowadays. Going out there for the occasional route run, out run, in a drag route, out route, in cut route, whatever the case may be. But going down deep, that ain't going to be Gronk no more.
I'd love to see him play.
He'd be a blocking tight end. That's what he would be relegated
I'd
to.
love to see him come back.
Of course he would. He's the greatest tight end of all time. Tight end of all time. Not receiver, not receiving tight end. Greatest tight end of all time.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Sorry for the people who say Travis Kelce, Antonio Gonzalez. No. Gronk is a better blocker than both those tight ends.
Antonio Gates.
No, I'm sorry, Tony Gonzalez.
Tony Gonzalez, yeah.
Because he, you could argue, he's also one of the best receiving tight ends, but he was also a phenomenal blocker. Gronk's a better blocker. The numbers obviously back up.
Gronk has the Super Bowl rings that Gonzalez never got.
Correct. He has 4.
Yeah.
Kelsey's got 3.
Yeah.
Also doesn't block very well. Again, people don't like the numbers. The numbers speak for themselves. We saw in the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce couldn't chip block. He would fail at that. Tim Tebow got released for not being able to do that in training camp. Kelce can't do it in the Super Bowl. Just throw that out there. People can get mad at me all you want. All right, that wraps up today's show of the Harvey Hour. We thank you for the constant support as always. My name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been the coach of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We're talking more NFL. There's some crazy stories out there that we're going to break down and discuss here. But we'll be here Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
See you then. Good night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift